Okay, this is for Yeetus Fetus. You're looking for a book for semi-advanced travel coaches, club coaches. So I want to talk about this training routine by Doug Nevins, and so you could call this is basically a real account of what I witnessed Coach Nevins, who was a former Gatorade Coach of the Year, former professional player, and I think he still coaches at West Orange High School in New Jersey. So I'm going to show you this practice routine. He did 4 things every practice in the same way. There are slight variations, but it was the same structure of practice every time. But before I get into that, I want to talk about some of the things behind the scenes that I don't think any book will tell you, or I'd be very surprised, because I just don't know. I just think this isn't common knowledge, yet is so powerful that I think it could really help you have more fun coaching in an effortless way and lead your team to more joyful season. So one thing I noticed, he was the most energetic person in practice. So he rarely criticized publicly, and if we connected 3 passes, let's say in the air, he would yell out. He would yell out tantalize. So he brought this energy that, it's easy for a coach. I think it's easy for a coach to yell at players to cover up incompetence, right? If players aren't doing right, it's easy to yell at them instead of articulating what could have been done better in a way that doesn't try to put them down. So I think that's it's easy to rely on, and I think he rarely did that. So whether it was warm up or just throughout practice, he brought this consistent high level of energy that I think really fed his players. Okay. Next thing, he showed offensive and defensive shape. He showed offensive and defensive shape with cones, and I think why this is important is because I read something somewhere that people have different levels of visualization, right? So if you think about numbers, what numbers represent, it's almost like the step to go from X's and O's on a flat piece of paper versus tangible objects that you can manipulate in the real world. I think players for some reason, I believe, have a deeper understanding of where they should be when you use cones to show formations instead of X's and O's on a piece of paper. So I just felt that, me personally, when he showed the movement of what we're supposed to look like offensively and defensively, it made me say, oh, I understand that. Like, that makes sense to me, and maybe I'm valuing that more. I don't know why I think that was so significant, but I just noticed that I don't remember a lot of other coaches using cones to show formations, and yet I've had a lot of former professional coaches and a lot of high level professional coaches. Almost every single coach who I was coached by, maybe not in the first 5, 6, 7 years of life. It's not those coaches, but from the age of 10 all throughout club, I was coached by former professional players. So and he was the only one who used cones to show offensive and defensive shape. The next thing that I think is extremely significant. It's probably one of the most things that coaches don't appreciate or utilize is patterns of substitution. And the reason is because the reason why it's so significant is because with your pattern of substitution, well, firstly, most coaches don't have patterns of substitution. They try and finesse it almost as if they're picking stocks. Right? It's like, I see Tesla looks like it's gonna go up, so let's put some money on Tesla. It's like, throughout my career, I noticed coaches try and use their intuition and try to change the game by putting in certain players and certain players, and I feel like they over strategize, Instead, what Doug would do that I saw was really effective is that halfway through the first half, you take out whatever group of players. It doesn't have to be the same group of players. It doesn't have to be the same positions. But the strategy is halfway through the first half, you take players out. And then the players that get subbed in, they stay on for the first half of the second half. And so halfway through the second half, you replace the subs that were still on with your original starters. So what I noticed, what it did was it created this continuity of energy, right? Because the subs that come off during halftime, they're not that winded, right? Because they only just played 20 to 25 minutes, assuming you have a 45-minute half. So they're still rearing to go. They still have a lot of energy, and you're going to get that halftime break. Right? Call it 5 to 10 minutes. So then they're still ready to go in the start of the second half. And your starters, they know that they're coming on since they know that they're coming on at the second half of the second half, they don't have this fall of energy. Because the worst thing is, if you've ever played, is that if you love playing, you never want to get off the field. You'll just do whatever it takes to stay on the field. Even if coach tries to sub you out, you'll almost refuse to be subbed out, right? So when you have players, right? I mean, Evans coached us when we were ranked one in the nation. So all these players are high-level players who all played collegiately, so and if not professionally. So why this is effective is because it doesn't drain the energy, the spirit out of the players who get taken out of the first half, since they know they're going out in this. They know they're going back on the second half of the second half. So what you're also going to see is that their energy level is raised in the first half of the first half, because they know that they're going to be taken off in the halfway mark of that first half, right? So all the players, they see this pattern. It's a logical, practical pattern where your players know what's going to happen, the parents know what's going to happen, and the coach knows. Everyone's on the same page. And what this also does is, a lot of coaches will say, Tommy, Bobby, Marky, warm up, but then only Tommy's going to go in. So you have the other two players just kind of, it's a coach who cried wolf, right? So next time you tell players to warm up, they're not going to put their heart into it as much, right? Because you've created this false expectation, and so that's another thing. That's another reason why this substitution pattern is effective, because the players, everyone on the bench knows that there's going to be a group of players who are coming in. So if you're not really in this group of players, who's going to raise? You could argue who's going to raise or keep the quality of play consistent or elevated. It's almost as if the bench, there's a hierarchy on the bench, and you got to make it right. You have to be better than the players who are the ones in practice to break into this. There's levels. There's starters, then there's the first people off the bench, and then there's the players who aren't going to raise the level. So that's the reason why they're not playing, right? Because they're on the bench, and they won't. So then they know that there's an opportunity to break it in the future, but they're just not there yet. So for all these reasons, it's like all these overlapping reasons why the substitution pattern is so simple but yet so effective. And I've talked about this a little bit in this. Maybe in this, what would you call it? This category on Reddit, and just the responses are quite funny, because I'm the farthest thing from an advanced coach, you could say, but it's like these practical lessons that you won't find. I don't think you'll really find anywhere else, because everyone who's already talking about everyone else who was coached by Doug either went out to play, I think professionally, at least of our team, PDA Cruyff, or has real jobs and is not talking about coaching. Okay, one last thing, the pregame routine. he would put 3 cones right before the start of the game, and he would do it would be a shuttle, so it would be a slalom, it would be a 3-cone slalom, and then a 5-yard sprint. And he would stand, and so there'd be 2 lines of that, right? And he would stand at the end of that 5-yard sprint. So you had your whole team in 2 lines, slalom, 2 players go at a time, and the next 2 players, and he would be verbally warming us up. So he'd say, yes, Tommy, yes, Mark, yes, Rick, Bobby, going through the line and giving everyone basically high fives. And the coach and players on the other team, since this is right before we were going to go on the field, they would almost get psyched out because we were getting so psyched up, because their attention was on us. It was like they wanted to be doing our pregame warm-up instead of theirs. And this was such a, like, I heard a story of how one of the best, I forget who the name of this jiu-jitsu player, or I'm sorry, fighter, but the day before a match, he would live stream his training, or maybe it was before the match, he would live stream his training. So what it did is it took players off their focus, their game plan, and kind of brought you into your own world. And again, this is something that I've never seen another coach do except for Coach Doug. So I just think, so for all these reasons, it made if you could only do these things and not apply this practice routine, I think you're still gonna have a lot of benefits. Okay, let's get into the practice routine. Already 11 minutes. It's 4 things every practice: possession, finishing on goal, crossing and finishing, and then playing to big goals. Playing to big goals on a small field. All right, let's see this. Can you see this? Okay. So possession, you want to make, a lot of coaches, they have their possession area too far apart. Coach Nevins would keep his possession games tight because then it forces rapid speed of play, rapid decision making. It forces players to maximize the space that they do not have. Obviously, you don't want the area so tight. You don't want the area so tight that they can't operate, but you want it tight enough where it's not endurance. The focus isn't on an endurance or a training. It's not like doing full field possession. It's tight intentionally so that the speed of play and decision making of players is intensified. So I think that's what I noticed that he did compared to other coaches better. He made the area of his possession games intentionally tight. Then he rotated between 3 different possession games. One was 2-team possession, right? 4 passes, 5 passes gets a point. First team to 5 or 6 passes, 5 or 6 points wins. The second game that was a lot of fun is 3-team possession, monkey in the middle style, right? So if you have enough pennies, or whatever, you have 3 teams, let's say you got 18, it just works out perfectly. 3 teams of 6, right? Yeah, 3 teams of 6. So, because then what you have is the teams are constantly calling out who's in the middle, and it's a lot of fun. Right? They'll say, oh, now red's in, and then they say, no, blue's in or yellow's in. So, but this requires you to have enough pennies, or maybe if you're a men's eye, you do shirts and skins, and then you have 1 set of pennies, something like that. The third possession game is you play through gates. So he would have gates we would have thin cones, and he would create gates in the possession area. So if you're playing 2-team possession, you'd have to connect a pass through a gate to score a point. And you can say first team to 5 points wins, 10 points wins, whatever. But what this did is it forced, right, once you start getting passes in between a gate, then the defending team would try and come stop you. So what this forced players to do is recognize the pressure from the defenders and have to switch the point of attack to an open gate. So it really made you effective. It really makes teams effective at recognizing pressure and playing away from pressure. So with this 3 rotation of possession games, I mean, we were ranked 1 in the nation for a reason. 1 was because we had great talent and, you know, some strong and technical players. But I mean, he was also, he knew what he was doing, right? He was a Gatorade Coach of the Year for a reason. So I think this is something that if you start to utilize, you're just going to find that you're just going to start running through teams. Okay, the next part, finishing on goal. So first part, finishing on goal. Can you see that? Okay, finish on goal, Slotsville, he would call it. The line would be about 10 steps off from the 18, and then it's basically full sprint, and you're finishing at the side netting. So low, hard-driven ball on the ground, he'd call it Slotsville. And you want to tell, if your team is missing wide, you want to tell them, make the keeper make a save, because if you don't even hit the frame of the net, that's a free save for the keeper. And another thing that he would encourage, we'd have most practices we would have 2 goalkeepers. So you want to have your goalkeepers rotate in and out at their leisure, because this finishing drill is psychologically taxing, especially if you've got players who know how to finish. And since there's no defenders, it's basically like your goalkeeper are sitting ducks. So with great strikers, your goalkeepers shouldn't make that many saves. And when you have back-to-back people just blasting the goal, low, hard-driven balls, you know, and you're a goalkeeper, it's not easy. So this is tough on goalkeepers. So you just want to tell your goalkeepers, go in and out of goal at your leisure. Encourage that. Okay, so he'd do 10 minutes of that, and then we'd go right into 5 minutes of Volleysville. So he would stand at the same spot where the drill starts, but then for Volleysville, all the players would pick up, right, there'd be a line right here, players, they'd pick up the ball and have the ball in their hands, and then, or they'd flick it up to Coach Doug, and Doug would be facing the goal, right, he'd be facing towards the goal. And the players, when they would stand, he would have them face this way, towards the opposite goal, behind him. So he would throw the ball over our heads, then the players would spin around rapidly, and then 1-touch volley, finish on net. Just getting nice connection, really doing that, you know, a snap, kind of snapping that volley. So it's like an effortless upper 90 laser, you could call it. So that was 5 minutes of that. So right, 10 minutes of low hard, and it's rapid fire, right? No whistle. Then 5 minutes of Volleysville. From there, we went right into crossing and finishing. So balls here, right? And then so two finishing lines, 2 crossing lines. First line would dribble the ball at high speed, right? This is game-like scenario. With a slight diagonal run, they would cross the ball in, and these lines of players, they would make their run and they would crisscross, right? So you tell these players crisscross and then finish on goal, 1 touch. And then the next line goes slightly diagonal to make it easier. Slightly diagonal run to make it easier to cross the ball, finish on net. And if you don't have a backstop here, you might need to reset the lines. You might need to reset balls, so take a few minutes pause to reset the balls to the lines, because the balls will either end up in the goal or on the backstop or beyond the goal if there's no backstop. So that taking time to recalibrate the lines and recalibrate the balls to the wingers, you might need to do that 2 or 3 times each this drill. Call it a 15 to 20 minute long drill. And then from there, you go right into playing King of the Hill on big goals with the field very small. So he would bring the goal, right, I'm gonna use this side. He would bring a goal, if this is 1 goal, he would bring a goal maybe right about here. and he would have the teams rotate, right? So he split the team up into three. And the reason why this was so effective is because the players who are sitting out, right? So that's the goal, and then he'd use the boundary of the 18-yard box. So look at that area. That's a tight area, but it's intentional. And the reason you want to do that is because you're going to get rapid transitions from offense to defense and defense to offense. The players that are sitting out around the outside, right, since you have three teams, the players that are around the outside, it keeps them engaged because they want to get back on the field. And they only have one touch as neutral players. So they're really tuned in. And you'll notice that if they give the ball to the wrong team, all the other players are going to harp at them. Right? They're going to be like, what the frick, dude? Like, you just lost us the ball and the opportunity to get back on the field. So it raises the reason why this playing the big goals on a small field, King of the Hill style, is so effective is because there's a higher volume of shots on goal, which means more saves, more crosses. It's like the whole practice is a combination of everything that you've applied, that you've trained for in the previous 45 minutes, right? So you really end on a high note here. Which kind of keeps that good energy in players' minds. They're like, it leaves them excited to enjoy the next practice and looking forward to the next practice. So, and you'll notice that teams who scrimmage each other and only have two teams, there's nothing gained or nothing lost. But when you split your team up into three and have them playing King of the Hill style, it raises inter-team competition and it raises intensity level. And if your team can cultivate a higher intensity than any other team you face, you're going to have a great season, right? Because it's rare that you'll lose the game if you're more intense than the other team during games. It's rare that you'll lose the game. That's what I believe. What else? And that's it. And so through this whole rotation, there was no water breaks. It was whenever you need to take a bathroom break, whatever, it was just understood, or maybe he articulated to get water whenever you want, bathroom whenever you want. Don't even ask. But he didn't pause for any reason. It was like the whole training routine. The flow of the whole session was the fitness. So we didn't spend that much time, to my memory, with Coach Nevins doing any type of fitness, because the fitness was, I'd be drenched in sweat at the end of every practice, right? Because he was able to raise practice intensity, training intensity, through the simple practice routine. So hopefully some of these ideas help. Reach out with any questions. All right, thank you.